We are going to go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to introduce Sense. This is our latest partnership. We are currently integrating with them. We're very excited to get started. I would like to kick it off by introducing you to the CEO. Before we get going, thanks again for taking time out of your day to join us. We love questions. We'll be taking questions at the end and throughout the conversation. You'll all receive an email afterward with a link to the recording. So if you want to share it and listen to it again later, if you have any questions, let me know. And please don't forget to take the exit poll on the way out. We'd love to get your feedback on this as well. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to the CEO of Sense, Mr. Pankaj Jindal. So really excited to introduce you to these guys. I'm going to get out of the way and let him do his thing.
John, thank you so much. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. Like John said, my name is Pankaj. I am one of the founders of Sense. We started the company a little over 6 years ago, but before I did, I ran talent acquisition and human capital firms for about 15 years. Today, we're going to be talking about harnessing AI and automation to build a powerful recruiting machine. Before I do that, let me also introduce my co-panelist, Jason Jakes. Jason, would you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Just to tell everyone, I am the Director of Solutions Consulting and Enablement at Sense. And today I'll be the one showing you around the product and showing you what Sense can accomplish. And I have been in the industry for probably about 20 years at this point. 12 of those years at another ATS, developing the software and doing enablement there. And then as a director of a systems integrator for a few years before joining Sense about 2.5. So on that, I'll hand it back to John.
Thank you, Jason. And yeah, all of you obviously know John, who runs partnerships and business development at BrightMove. And again, we couldn't be more thankful to him to get this partnership started. So before I get started, I'm actually going to give you just a quick overview of the partnership itself. Sense and BrightMove signed this partnership literally a couple of months ago. We've already been working to get some of our initial customers live on the partnership. This is how the partnership actually came into being. We got some of the customers who started to use Sense, who also use BrightMove as their applicant tracking system. And then the synergies were just obvious. And that's how this partnership got started. Obviously, over the next few weeks and months, we are looking forward to bringing hundreds of BrightMove customers onto the Sense platform. Sense has multiple different products. You're going to see a few of them today, and you're going to see a few of them at a very high level because each one of them could take its own webinar to actually walk through in detail. But the idea today is to give you a taste of what we do. So four of our larger products: Engage, Messaging, Chatbot, and Referrals. They're all going to be available on BrightMove very soon. So anybody who signs up with Sense, as soon as we are able to make you have you go live, you will actually go live with a full API-based integration. And let me also tell you a little bit about Sense. For those of you who are not familiar with the company, we started nearly 6 years ago at this point, with a single vision to build the first ever talent engagement platform. That was our vision when we started, and we've stayed very true to that. Today, we work with over 500 customers and help them engage better with their talent, with their customers, as well as with their own internal employees. We're also SOC 2 Type 2 certified, which is to essentially say that we take our customers' data very, very seriously. And during this process, we've raised about $40 million from 3 different, blue chip investors: Axel Partners, Google Ventures, and Avatar. So that's a little preamble on Sense and a little preamble on where we are with our partnership with BrightMove. Before I get into the webinar itself, I would encourage everyone to please be interactive, ask us as many questions as you would like. The more questions you ask us, the better it is for us to tailor this conversation, answer things that are top of mind for you, so on and so forth. All right, so let's get started. I mean, here is what we think about when we think about recruiting processes. So if you think about it, recruiting processes today are expensive, they're complex, and these are some of the challenges that I'm listing today that we hear in common from pretty much all of our customers. The first thing that we hear is that there is a very high drop-off ratio. In other words, the pipeline of candidates is highly inefficient. Most customers will tell us that if you essentially start with 100 candidates, you'd be lucky if one of them gets to a point that they would get an offer. So you're manually screening hundreds of people and only one of them is going to get to an offer. And you probably won't have a strategy to nurture these other 99 people who drop out of your pipeline. So essentially, one, how do you make this pipeline more efficient? How do you take this screening and instead of this being a manual screening every single time, make it automated? And in the same time, just make sure that anybody who's interacted with your company once always stays in a nurture process with you so they don't disappear. Secondly, there is a really high cost per hire that we see today. If you're hiring somebody who is an IT/professional candidate, cost per hire is around $3,500 to $4,000. But if you're hiring somebody that's, clerical, light industrial, commercial worker, those could be about $1,500. But on an average, you're spending about $2,000 to acquire a candidate that you hire. And eventually, we've seen companies that will have database sizes of hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, and you've gotten all these people after spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars with job boards. But this existing database of candidates is currently undermined. In other words, your recruiters never think of this as the first source that they should go to find new candidates and fill positions. What's even more interesting is while they don't do that, about 50% of all hires actually come from candidates that already existed in your database. The third issue that we talk about is retention. Once people finish a single assignment with you, if it was a temporary assignment, most people would just move on to another provider, another company. In other words, retention, loyalty within our business is really, really low. And then lastly, this is the thing we talk about a lot. Recruiters spend 75% of their time not talking to people. You would think that a recruiter is always talking to either a candidate or a hiring manager, but they're instead spending a lot of their time updating the database, updating some of your internal systems, prospecting, scheduling interviews, rescheduling them, sending reminders. And we'll show you how you can automate pretty much all of that and what our customers have been doing today. So those are some of the challenges that we think about. So this is kind of how we design Sense. Sense becomes your single system of engagement. We can suck in data from many different sources. We obviously will have a bi-directional sync with your applicant tracking system, but we can also consume referrals. We can also consume candidates that are coming in on your website, candidates that are applying to you through a job board. So any place, your top of the funnel is coming in will automatically become part of Sense. And of course, we'll have the rest of the folks from the ATS. But then we use different products, like I mentioned in the beginning, to do either automated cadence-based touch points with them, which is the Journeys product, or stay in touch with them over text messaging, or use conversational AI recruiting, which is a chatbot, so on and so forth, to make sure that Sense becomes a single hub by which you are retaining your talent, you're recruiting, you're making more placements, you're reducing time to hire, you're making sure your people don't drop off from the pipeline, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through the 4 or 5 products that I mentioned here one by one, just a single slide, very high level overview on what we're trying to accomplish and what are the key advantages. And I'll talk about a product and Jason is going to walk you through that product, show you a few use cases. Everything will be at a very high level for the moment because we're trying to give everybody just a taste of what Sense can do, but happy to take detailed questions, happy to set up more conversations, obviously, to show you the platform in detail. So the first thing we will start with is automation. How do you essentially automate, outreach at any point of the talent lifecycle? You've just submitted somebody to a hiring manager, or they've just gotten an interview, or they've just gotten an offer, or they're just about to start, or they've started and you're now a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that, or they're just about to finish their assignment. Across this entire life cycle, there are many different kinds of touch points that you can send out in an automated fashion that makes your company look consistent. Every single thing is happening exactly the same with every single candidate. And it's basically taken away from the recruiter. Second, how do you find talent that's hidden within your own database? That's the part that I talked about in the beginning. So if you think about, I have 1,000,000 people in my database, I have 100,000 people in my database. How do you make sure that your next 100 placements or next 100 hires come from those people without having to spend a ton of money on job boards, or every time you have somebody to hire, just looking outward instead of first looking inwards? The third is using Net Promoter Score. Hopefully everybody is very familiar with NPS, but that's a single number that tells candidates how well you take care of talent. And that's a single number that determines whether people will apply to you, whether people will come inbound to your company or not. So you can use Sense to build a really high, to get to a really high NPS score and build an employer brand. In fact, if you are one of those companies that has multiple branches or multiple brand names or multiple offices, it becomes super relevant to make sure that every one of those entities is actually sending out a very consistent message. And then lastly, we'll also show you a bunch of metrics that you can measure along the way to absolutely know what your ROI is from this automation. We are one of the few software companies that are very maniacal about ROI. If you work with us, every quarterly review that we have with you, we will bring back, here is how we've decreased your time to hire. Here is how we've decreased your drop-off ratios. Here is how we've increased your assignment lengths. And given your own metrics, your average bill rates, your average assignment times, this is exactly the amount of revenue that we've added to your top line and profitability that we've added to your bottom line. So with that, I am going to punt this off to Jason for the first time, but we're going to do this back and forth 3 or 4 times, where I'm going to give you a quick introduction about a product, and then Jason's going to walk you through a few use cases so you can get a feel for how easy and slick the product it is to use. So with that, Jason, if you would walk us through journeys and automation, please.
Sure thing. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And everyone should be seeing Sense at this point. So I will take you on that journey, pun intended, I guess, because that's where we're going to go here. And you can think of our journeys as campaigns or workflows, whatever fits your nomenclature. And as I go down here into our journeys, I am going to walk through this in a kind of a logical progression of what would be happening with a staffing and recruiting firm. But do know that Sense is also built for corporate or enterprise as well. So we fit the model very well for staffing, but also the model for corporate hiring. Now, from a staffing perspective, one of the things that we're going to be helping out with is not just candidate, activation and employee care, but also we can help on the sales side of things. And on corporate side, that translates to, staying in touch with hiring managers. But in this case, we can handle everything from cold marketing and sales to lead nurturing to reverse marketing to taking those best candidates and presenting them out to the hiring managers. And then we move down into what I would call the top of the funnel with candidates and the sourcing. So pretty much everyone has, whether it's corporate or staffing, you're going to have a very large number of essentially dormant profiles. So one of the things that Sense is excellent at is, reaching out and reactivating those in mass, and then maintaining those relationships in mass through automation with, help of Copilot, which is the manual communications that we remind people to do as well. And then of course, if we're talking about CCPA or GDPR compliance, we'll be able to help with data retention and keeping the database in line with whatever compliance that is. And then we can also engage during what I would call the evaluation phase. Whether that's you're grabbing people from corporate job boards, bringing them into the system, or internal interviews, external interviews, the stage of the candidate as they move from their initial application or initial communication with you all the way through either being hired, placed on contract, or a negative disposition. So there's a lot we can do there as we monitor the stages of that candidate through the life cycle. And then, of course, we have pre-deployment, helping with onboarding when people are actually out on contract, making sure we're doing things like giving them the white glove treatment that your best recruiter or talent acquisition person is doing. Making sure they get all those communications, they get in a timely manner. And most of the time, Sense is able to improve the process and include more communications and make sure they go out when they should go out. And that might include just check-ins, it might include surveys, it might include referral requests, it might include NPS scores. And we'll go through a couple of these, not super in-depth, we'll go through and see how they're constructed. And then, of course, if you're hiring people permanently, that's definitely on the corporate side, you're really doing kind of the same thing, to make sure just in staffing through the guarantee period, but in corporate, you're doing it to make sure that you give them that experience and you're collecting feedback all along the way. And then, of course, holidays, just standard reminders, birthdays, and then for staffing or even corporate, if you have people out on contract, you want to make sure you engage them and get them the next opportunity or the next position that you can staff them at and stay in tune with them so they don't stray and go someplace else. And that can even include exit surveys and performance reviews as well. And then, of course, just re-engaging people, keeping that line of communication open in mass. And that's where we're looking at, like alumni relations or even, reactivating sales contacts that at some point gave you jobs, but haven't given you jobs lately. And for large organizations, we can even do internal campaigns. So if you want to do things relative to team morale or run an internal referral campaign, we can support that. So there's a whole lot there as far as what we can do. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into this, on assignment. So this is someone who's going out on contract, maybe a Java developer going out for 6 months. What does that look like? Well, here's how it's all constructed, and we kind of break it down, and hopefully I can give you enough of an understanding so you can consume it and then understand how this might fit your process no matter what the situation is. Now, in this instance, in our journeys, there's 3 things that come into play here. The first is the audience. That's us determining who's going to receive the communications. The second is the actual content, which we have a lot of examples of. And the third is the actual trigger mechanism, when these communications are going to be sent out. Now, from an audience perspective, this is a good place to point out that everything I'm going through right now is not something that the talent acquisition team or the recruiting team, they're not going to need to be involved in this. We are going to do the heavy lifting, like Pankaj said earlier, where we set up these journeys initially for you with your input. And then they just work in the background, because what we're doing as I come in here is we're actually listening for the data. So if this contract or this assignment's been created and has a status of approved, and it's a contract to hire employment type, and the candidate status isn't archived, then great. They've added that placement or that assignment or that hire in BrightMove, and we see that and automatically add all those people in this campaign. And then if for some reason that person takes another job 2 days before and they email you, you're going to cancel that. And so they will no longer match this criteria and they'll automatically get pulled out. So the recruiter or the talent acquisition team, they just need to do what they would normally do in BrightMove, and Sense listens for that. So no action. And what that means is adoption is 100% because they don't have to change their process. Now, from a content perspective, you'll see that we're sending things out to the candidate or the client or hiring manager, depending on which side of the house we're talking about. And then, of course, we can even send communications internally to the recruiter or talent acquisition person. So we're making sure we reach everyone. And also you can see we're sending communications out via text or via email. And if I look at like this pre-start check-in 2 days before, this is going out, and the key is it's authentic. It's going out from the candidate owner, from the recruiter. And then, we obviously merge everything in, goes out very easily, and it just appears to the candidate like it was written by the recruiter, and it goes out without them having to think about it. And that's a simple example. Another simple example might be, first day instructions, where we're merging in more data. And we can accommodate really any of the fields you're using in BrightMove that we're syncing into Sense. So we can merge all this in, so you don't have to craft all these custom emails. You can just have it automatically go out based on what's recorded in BrightMove. Now, emails and text, that's great, but we can take it a step further. You can see in this instance, we're doing a survey on day one, a survey, on the end of the first week. Then we're also doing a 1 month net promoter score, and then even a referral ask at the end. So I'm going to jump into this net promoter score question where we ask a couple of quick ones. How's your experience been with the recruiter? What was your reason for this rating? But then we get down to this actual net promoter score question. How likely to recommend, in this case, our fictitious staffing firm, Blue Way Staffing and Recruiting, to a friend or colleague? Well, one of the things that's really nice here is we can be reactive in our surveys. We'll reflect whatever their tone is. So in net promoter score, if they're 8 or less, they're either neutral or detractor. So we can just go ahead and ask them to give us some feedback. But if they're a promoter, 9 or 10, then we can give them a completely different experience and say, hey, we're super excited you had a great experience. Would you actually mind going and posting something on one of our social media outlets? And then present whatever links you want here to help bolster the number of reviews and the quality of reviews, because we've only exposed those to people that said they were happy, the self-elected. And as a secondary piece of this, we can also send it when we think people are happiest. And that goes to the third piece, which I was talking about, which is the triggering mechanism or the scheduling. Now, if I want to, I can go ahead and you can see this case, we're sending it 30 days or a month after the start date of whenever they either started their permanent job or their contract job. But I can even go so far as to be a little bit more precise when I think people might be happiest, and knowing that payday is Friday, I'm going to send it on the second Friday, because how much happier could they be? You just placed them, they just started, it's their first payday, so the bloom's still on the rose, and we can send it right then to either get a net promoter score review or ask for a referral. So that's an example of kind of how everything's constructed. Now, for the triggering, we can also support other things like just, I want everything to show up at Monday morning at 9 a.m., top of everyone's inbox for a big marketing send. Or maybe I want to trigger something based off a data change in BrightMove. We can accommodate for that as well. So hopefully through that quick walkthrough, you have an idea of what it goes into creating one of those things. And as we talk about all these examples here, just so everyone knows, we have a complete library of these journeys already ready to go. So all you need to do is, and if you want, you can copy an existing one, maybe tailor it a little bit for a specific client, or you can use any of our templates and just create them if it was something that you hadn't been doing before. So the key is we're going to provide you all the content and get you essentially the 70 or 80% mark. And then you can kind of tweak the verbiage and the tone and maybe add a touch point or a piece of communication or remove one as you see fit. But you're not going to have to start from scratch. And during the implementation, we're going to do it all for you. So on that, I'm going to send it back to Paul to talk a little bit about two-way messaging.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. So, what we've just shown you is obviously you can take any process that your recruiters are doing today and essentially automate that, whether it is sending first day instructions, onboarding messages, checking in after a certain number of days, asking for net promoter scores, asking for exit interviews, sending them new job opportunities. So pretty much anything. If you're ever doing a company event, asking for RSVPs, if you wanted to do a survey, so on and so forth. But think about the entire recruiting life cycle, and you can essentially take any part of that life cycle and automate that. Now, this is what we call an autopilot. These are just things that are just happening automatically in the back. You set it up one time and then you forget it. Let's now talk about something that acts more as a co-pilot, something that helps your recruiters on a daily basis. And this is something your recruiters interact with hundreds of times a day, which is the automated two-way text messaging. It manifests itself as a Chrome extension that sits on top of BrightMove. So it's very much integrated with the applicant tracking system. You can send out one-on-one text messages. You can send out one-to-many text messages to hundreds of people at the same time. And each of those messages go out as a personalized message. So if I sent a same message that was like, hey, welcome to our company, hope your first day is doing great, they will still go out as welcome John to our company, welcome Jason to our company, because you can use variables in that, and we will absolutely show you that. So first of all, you can do text messaging, and all of these messages will get recorded and written back into your ATS. This is also supremely helpful if you ever run into a situation where your recruiters are using personal cell phones, you have some compliance concerns, or if you have concerns around if you lose a recruiter tomorrow, they take all the conversations with them that they had with the 300 candidates that they were managing. But this will turn all of this information and write that into your system of record, which is BrightMove. Your response rates will dramatically improve. When I say dramatically, they can go 10x. We have customers today where response rates to email are in the low single digits, but with text messaging, they've gone up to 50 to 70%. You can also essentially see how we can give control over these text messaging inboxes to your colleagues. If you're not going to be available for a couple of days, somebody else can step in for you. You can send automated messages. You can send signatures. There is just a whole lot that you can do with text messaging. It's also a powerful solution that validates phone numbers. If you're ever trying to send a text message to a number that's not a mobile number, the system automatically finds that out, which basically means we will alert you ahead of time that this message isn't going to be delivered. And what's even more interesting is that we have integrated this with the Journeys platform that Jason just showed you. So right before you're even about to send a text message, you will have a full view of every automated message that has ever gone out to this individual. So you can make your decisions accordingly. If you just sent an automated message yesterday, maybe you don't want to send that text message today, and maybe you want to wait for a couple of days. But the whole Chrome extension that I'm talking about acts like a communication cockpit. So let's get into that a little bit, and let's show you that live. It's a very, very slick product.
All right, thanks, Pankaj. So I am going to get my Zoom out of the way here. I'm going to move over into BrightMove for this. So in this case, I'm in the BrightMove platform, and I have the Sense Chrome extension on top, and it's telling me I have a message waiting for me. So just like on your mobile phone, you're going to have a little app notification. So if I had 13 messages, I'd see 13 here, and I can click that and open it. So if I go into Kiz Richardson's profile, you can see he responded with "works great." But to kind of follow what Pankaj was talking about, as I look at this profile, one of the things I see here is I see a text in green, and that text in green actually was an automated text. So it was sent via Engage, so it was sent automated, and then Kiz replied to it. And then I picked up, so he replied, "Yes, please give me a call." And then I picked that up manually. So the blue text is me actually manually responding to him. And then, obviously the conversation continued from there. Now, of course, we're supporting, images and attachments throughout here. And if I scroll up a little bit more, you'll see that there's also purple. And purple is mass text. So if you want to engage with, and send a message to, say, 100 candidates or 500 candidates, or whatever the case is, we're going to support that. And so it's super easy to use, because all I need to do is come into BrightMove, run my search, and then quickly pull up messaging, say new message, grab numbers from the screen, and then I can add all those contacts. And now all the people that were in that list are now here to text. And you can see, actually, I have my example here, Lucy Landline. As Pankaj was saying, we can identify those landlines, remove those before we even go to send it out. And then, of course, you're going to have the idea of templates. So rather than me typing something in, I can just use a quick template, put that in there. And there's another feature here, which I might not do if I was sending out to 500 people at a time. but I can also go ahead and drop in a scheduling link. So if I wanted to have someone schedule time on my calendar, we have a full calendar integration. So that way they can click that link, and I'll show you that a little bit further along in the chatbot demonstration. What they'll be like, you can dump that, you can put that in here. I can go ahead and send this out immediately, or I can schedule it to go out later, whatever the case is. So very easy to use, very easy to engage with large numbers of people on demand. And if I pull this out a little bit further, one of the things, and I don't pull that far, I just cancel this message, is on the right-hand side over here, these are all my recent conversations. So yes, I'm going to be able to search by keyword. I'll be able to search for people. I'll be able to sort as appropriate, show me all the people I haven't replied to so I don't ghost them, unread. And then of course, whichever conversation I've highlighted is what showed up here. And it's all color-coded, very easy to understand. And on the right-hand side, this is where I can see all the upcoming automation as well. So if this person's scheduled to receive something very shortly, we'll be able to see that here. And then all the recent automation. So if I send an email that was, about their birthday, like, hey, happy birthday, and we sent it to them a couple days ago. Last thing I want to do is like, oh, the last text was, 5 weeks ago. It's been a little while, just wanted to check in, but I sent him a text or sent him an email about his birthday. That's the key. You want to make sure you're using one system, whether that's engaging through chatbot, automation, email, text, whatever the case is, and you can see everything that's going on all in one place. Now, the other thing I'll point out is that as far as numbers go, if you need your talent acquisition manager or recruiting manager to be able to see what the recruiters are doing from a quality assurance perspective, they can, of course, see their employees' inboxes here. And you can also, if someone's out for a day, they can go ahead and give delegation to someone else so they can manage it for the day. So there's a lot of collaboration that can go on. And although I don't have an example in this person, but if someone else is texting with Kiz Richardson from the organization, you'll be able to see those items here as well. So you have complete visibility across the board. And key here is everything's logged within the system. So if I go into Kiz Richardson's profile, then we can see in the notes section, we have a whole bunch of examples of things we're logging. So as far as text go, we have the ability to log the text as, each individual text, SMS in, SMS out, or we also have the ability to do daily logs. So we can see the whole conversation all at once rather than taking up a bunch of notes. But then going back to engage where we were before, we're also going to be logging all of those events. So sense event sent, this was a candidate redeployment journey. We essentially have some meta information, what it was about, and then the contents of what was sent. And then of course, if someone replies to it, sense event response, we log that. Same thing goes with chatbots, chatbot event sent. And if someone replies to chatbot, then we see the whole conversation back and forth. And this is in addition to the notifications that are going to be set up. So if someone does reply, someone can get an email notification, but we want to make sure it's all logged within BrightMove so everyone has that visibility no matter when they come to look at the candidate profile. So on that, I will hand it back to Pankaj to talk a little bit about the chatbot.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So, again, just to recap, what you've seen so far is how you automate your talent journey through the entire life cycle. How do you give superpowers to your recruiters by helping them do text messaging? This is probably the most exciting thing we will talk about, which is a conversational recruiting assistant. In other words, a chatbot. A chatbot works for you 24/7. There is no working hours for a chatbot. If a candidate wants to talk to you at midnight, a chatbot is very much there. It can ask exactly the questions you want to ask, depending on whatever is relevant within your environment. In healthcare, you might ask for some licensure. In commercial situations, you might ask for, do you have a driver's license, or would you subject yourself to COVID screening? In the case of IT and professional, you might ask, how many years of experience do you have with this job before we consider having you talk to a recruiter? So first of all, an automated screening chatbot, which means the hundreds of conversations that your recruiters have today to find those 5 candidates, that's the needle in the haystack, the 5 candidates that are actually worth talking to, will be done automatically. And once somebody meets the criteria, they will automatically be scheduled on your recruiter's calendar. Second, the calendar will integrate with your calendaring system, whether it is, you use Google Suite, Office 365, whatever the case might be. So this is very much automatically meetings showing up on your calendar when you can talk to candidates, and you get to set up the times that you want to make available for that. I'm only going to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, only going to do 9 to 11 a.m. And those are the blocks that will be taken over. One thing that's been very important to our customers is it removes any kind of bias from this hiring. If you had a particular job and if a recruiter was going to have any conscious or unconscious bias around, I don't want a certain gender for this job or a certain age group for this job or this or that, it's completely removed by the chatbot. The chatbot doesn't have that bias, which means dozens and dozens of candidates will make their way into your recruiting funnel that may not have done that previously. Now, we've seen tremendous success from this platform. We have customers today who are reporting that they're making 3 times the number of hires by using the same amount of candidates and same amount of time as they were before. We have customers reporting that their recruiters are saving 40 to 50% of their daily time, which was basically spent on screening and scheduling and so on and so forth. So this is just an unbelievable tool, even though I say so myself. And every time we've shown what this platform can do, it has immediately generated interest. So again, if anybody has any questions around this, happy to answer that, but I'll send this back again to Jason to walk you through the platform.
Thanks, Pankaj. And as we jump in, I'm going to show you a couple examples of actual candidate experience. So I'm going to minimize this, and we're going to look at my phone for a second. And I think one of the real differences is people hear chatbot, and I think that inbound chatbot sits on the website, and that's great. That exists. We can do that as well. But the real power is the outbound chatbot and the engaging chatbot. So I'm going to show you 2 quick examples. One's via a web-based interface. So in case we didn't have their mobile number, we send them an email and they can engage with the chatbot that way. And I'm going to show you that example is a re-engagement chatbot. For those dormant profiles that provide an engaging experience, let them give us their updated information. And then the second one is a pre-screening. So someone's applied for a job, and we're going to reach out and say, hey, by the way, we have a few quick follow-up questions, and we'll show you that one via SMS or via text. So I'm going to go into here, and you can see update your profile with Blue Wave Staffing. So in this case, quick email that went out, automated, saying, hey, it's been a while. And this can be part of a total engagement campaign with a lot of drips, some newsletters, some, legislation updates, whatever the case is. You have this integrated in there, and then click on the link, and it takes them to a nice engaging chatbot experience where you can see here, it's, hey, I'm Reva, your virtual recruiting assistant. And all the verbiage here, this can be tuned. And just like with the journeys, we have templates, and we are going to create this for you during the implementation. So this conversation is only take a few minutes. Let's get started. What's your zip code? So maybe now we're targeting people that we don't have that information for. So I'll go ahead and put something in. And you can see the first thing is there's good data validation, right? So good data in ends up better placements and better engagement. So you can see here, it validated actually where I'm located, and I can really put in some data incorrectly again and go through that process. But I'm just going to do it correctly this time. And am I currently employed? And this is one of the nice things about the web-based chatbot is it's a button, so I don't even have to type anything in. I can just touch my screen. I'm looking for hourly or salaried. I'm going to say hourly. What's my desired rate? $65 an hour. Title, I'm going to say developer. And then, what's my work authorization? I'm going to say green card. And one of the nice things that we can do in any chatbot is make sure that people get their data right. Because although I'm not making a decision like a pre-screen where I'm like go, no go, you do want to put some of these in place. So if someone fat fingers something, they have a chance to correct it. So I can say, oh, no, I want to edit it, and I want to change my work authorization. I'm going to change it to US citizen. Now I'm going to say it looks good. Fantastic. Be happy to set up some time to chat. So this is where the scheduler can come into play. I'm going to say no in this instance, because I'll show it to you again in a second. And then we always do a quick rating at the end, because we're always monitoring the chatbots, whether you have completion, what your completion rates are, and then your satisfaction rates. So if anything dips down below like a 4.5, or you have too many completions, you know to go back and assess that, maybe look at the questions where they're abandoning or what's going on, and then go ahead and update that chatbot. Now, going into the other use case, and we're going to start down here where you see today, is thanks for applying. So this is someone applied to a job, and now we have a few quick follow-up questions for them. Am I ready to get started? I'm going to say, sure, I'm ready to get started. Thanks for asking. Conversation should only take a few minutes. The first question here is, do I have a bachelor's degree? That I can put in yes or no. And then the next bubble here is you can continue the conversation. Now, I just sent this as a quick test, but if this was triggered for real, that would be a link to the web-based chatbot. So if someone wanted to go from text to the web-based, they can do so. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I have a bachelor's degree. And next, it's going to prompt me. We're going to go through a few questions here. I'll try and get through as quickly as possible. What's my area of specialization? And let's say network and system administration. Am I certified in agile methodology? And how much experience do I have? And you can see I'm using a shortcut of a letter because there are no buttons in SMS. But you can make those so they're either single select or multi-select. Am I currently equipped to work from home? I am. And great news, when would they be available to start work? So in the background, pretty much when I saw the great news, in the background, we made the decision based on the number of questions we had that this person passed the pre-screen. So now it's asking me when I can start work. And I'm going to say next month. And I could say ASAP, I could put in a date, I could do whatever the case is. And the whole thing about a chatbot is it has a natural language understanding. Now it's prompting me and saying, hey, it looks like you're a great fit. Would you mind scheduling some time with a recruiter to talk further about this? And so now I can go in and it'll take me into a scheduling tool. And it's super easy. I can go look at number of days, I can choose time, and this can be associated to either a group of calendars for availability or an individual recruiter calendar who's associated with that candidate. It's up to you. I'm just going to confirm that time. And what that's doing is that's actually sending out an appointment invite to both the recruiter and the candidate this time. So one of the great things is, if you think about this, most of the people are looking at jobs and they're doing some of this after work at night. So someone's going in, they're applying, they're potentially getting a notification from you saying, hey, go look at our jobs. They go look at the jobs, they apply, then they get a follow-up and says, great, we have a few quick questions. Then we tell them that they passed pre-screen and we schedule time for the following day or the next day. So that candidate has this great sense of accomplishment as opposed to your competitors, which they're applying and it just kind of goes into a black hole for a while. So this is a really great experience for the candidate. And then I can come in here and I had my notifications turned off, but you can see I got a few more texts. You set schedule a meeting. We're excited to get connected with you, and another ask for feedback. So those are a couple examples of how the chatbot would work. Now I'm going to jump into Sense for just a second back here and talk a little bit about the two things. One is the scheduling. So that's a quick piece. And I do want to just point out that what we do is we ask people to come in and link their Exchange, their Google Calendar, just like they would on their phone. And then we create templates for people so they can control this booking process. So I'm really just pointing out there's a lot of control of this. Like how much notice do you need? Do you need buffer time? How far out do you want to allow people to book? Do you have specific hours that you want to use for interviews and things like that? And then there's things like automatic acceptance, sending out reminders via text, via email. You can use this link outside of Sense, you put it in your email, things like that, but we're going to ask what their name, email, and phone number are if they schedule it out of context. Then we also support Teams. So if we want to make sure that we're maximizing availability for candidates, we can put all of our recruiters or talent acquisition staff into one template, and then make sure that if 11 is available for anyone, the candidate can choose from that, or we can optimize and for equal work allocation and round robin. So that's a scheduling, but from a chatbot, and we call them conversations here. The key is, I'm going to go into maybe this draft IT pre-screen that we were just looking at. And I'm not going to do, I'm just going to point out that this is incredibly easy to use. It's like a wizard. So you have all this nice technology in the background doing all this stuff, but it's just a workflow diagram. And any place you see the little plus, I can drop in a question, message, and drop in any other modules that we need to make this chatbot work. And as I go down through and eventually get to kind of the interesting part, which is the final evaluation where we're making that decision. That's where we're saying, did they answer the knockout questions correctly? If not, jump them to pre-screen fail and let them down softly. If they pass, then we can ask their availability, we can schedule the interview, and notify people. So that's great, but really it's not just about the technology, it's about the usage of the technology. And with the Sense chatbot, you're in full control. So if you need to edit a chatbot or you need to build a new chatbot, maybe you got off the phone and you just got a new role that you haven't had anything like that before, and you need to build a chatbot, you can come in here, very quickly put together, click build, and we have an automated build process, and it's ready for you within 15 minutes. So you could be off the phone with the hiring manager and have a chatbot pre-screen built and deployed within an hour. So the speed to how fast you can react is quite good with Sense. And on that note, I'm going to hand it back to Pankaj to talk a little bit about analytics.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. So, hopefully you guys got a little bit of a taste of what a chatbot can do. Again, what you're seeing on your screen right now is just one conversation. You can create any number of conversations. They can be different for your jobs. They can be different based on the use. They can be different based on whether somebody is applying to you or whether you are reaching out to them. But essentially, if your recruiter was ever going to set up time with the candidate and talk to them and ask them 10 questions, why don't just have those 10 questions be asked in a natural language automatically, so we can determine whether this person is worth spending your recruiter's time on. Now, in the interest of time today, we are skipping a couple of other Sense products, but we actually want to show you data intelligence and analytics. This is something our customers ask about it a lot. This is included with all of our products. There is absolutely no charge for any of this analytics or intelligence, but you can't improve what you can't measure. So what we've done is we've taken a whole lot of KPIs that CEOs and executives look for, and we have essentially bundled them together into a data intelligence suite, if you will. So not only can this track 50 different things that are probably important to you right out of the box, you can create any number of analytics you might want. If there is a particular field in your applicant tracking system that you want to see analytics on, you can create analytics on it. I mean, oftentimes we quip about the fact that if you stored a field that stored somebody's favorite color or a favorite sports team, you can do your analytics on, hey, show me everybody whose favorite color is pink. So this is how flexible it is. It's not like, here are the 5 things we do and that's it. You essentially create your own analytics based on what is good to your business. And this also makes sure that on a daily basis, if you wanted, you have your eye on the ROI that the platform is generating. Again, we're very proud of the fact that we're literally the only system that does that, where if you spend $50,000, $20,000, $100,000 with Sense, you know that on a daily, weekly basis, that this is the amount of money I'm getting back, and when am I going to reach my 10x in ROI? So we will walk you through the data intelligence platform, and we'll try and save a couple of minutes towards the end for Q&A. Jason, back to you.
All right, so let me jump in, and I'm going to move out of this chatbot. And Zoom keeps moving on me. I'm going to jump out of this chatbot and move all the way over into analytics. So just to echo what Pankaj was saying is, we're going to have all the standard statistics that you would expect for any communications platform, based on delivery rates, bounces, skips, conversion summary. I really like this one because this is, when we're engaging in a lot of different ways. We're engaging via text, we're engaging via surveys, we're engaging via chatbots, we're engaging via emails with links, without links, and you can always see exactly how we're doing across all those and what our conversion ratio is. So makes life really simple to kind of get a pulse on what's going on. But of course, we can dive down and segment the data any way we want. So any of the fields we're synchronizing with BrightMove, if I come over here, like I said, if we end up syncing a field like favorite color, like Punkage mentioned, or favorite sports team, if you want to filter all your data based on the candidate favorite color, yeah, we can accommodate for that because any field can be put here and used as a filter. So that's quite a bit different than most standard reporting mechanisms. But it's not just how you can segment the data, but is the data useful? And of course, if you want to visualize it, we can visualize it for the good, the bad, the ugly, depending on what you want to see. And this is the high level, but if we need to see all the responses and segment that, we can also do that. And the same with the delivery history. So you can get as granular as you want. If you need to export this data, we can certainly accommodate that. You can pull it out and put it in another BI tool like Power BI or Domo or whatever the case is. But then we also have other things, like flag responses. And I didn't get into this during the demonstration of Engage, but the idea here is if someone replies under a certain threshold for a rating or keywords like discrimination or unsatisfactory or things like that, we're going to note that. And we're actually notifying people at that time to go take action. So it's pretty much an instantaneous thing. But we want to make sure we aggregate it here for management as well. And then, of course, if you're inserting links into your emails, are you successful? Are you driving the traffic? Are they getting clicked? Chatbot metrics, the satisfaction, the transcripts of the chatbots. We're, like I said before, we're keeping track of that here. But as you saw before, when I was in BrightMove, we're actually logging that data there as well. With messages, this is a two-way messaging as opposed to the automated send of texts from the automation engine. This is when people are manually sending two-way texts. But this has a couple of nice pieces to it that are unique. And once again, I'm making a pun and not even meaning to, but we're measuring things like unique conversations, not just, did someone reply to it, but were there multiple back and forths that resulted in an actual conversation? Or, what's our overall response rate? And this one is nice too, which is what's our average response time? And our demonstration account is atrocious, but our best clients are, measuring anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes as an average response time, giving their candidates the experience that they expect. And it's important that we can measure this so we can see if someone's average response time is like half an hour, which is not what candidates are looking for, because when they respond, they typically respond within 90 seconds or a few minutes. Then, of course, the meetings. So we talked about that, and people being able to sync their calendars so that, the candidates can book time based on their availability. And then Net Promoter Score, we're measuring that both from, and this is a staffing view of it, this is the candidate or the consultant and the client, but certainly on the corporate side, we're measuring it from the candidate and the hiring manager. So we want to make sure we track both those metrics. And then from a performance perspective, well, this is, where, essentially the rubber meets the road. Like, what are you getting out of Sense? Is Sense helping your business? And we're going to put that ROI right in front of you and tell you, hey, here's how many placements the Sense has actually influenced. And that might be, resourcing it from your dormant portion of your database, or that might be, a long series of communications that Sense managed during the application or the evaluation process. So we're going to keep track of that and let you actually see, because it's not just a black box, but you can export that data so you can see all the communications that Sense managed for that placement. And then, of course, time savings. Every time you're sending a text or an email, it's taking a minute or two. So we aggregate that, and we will tell you how many, essentially man hours that are being saved for, per week or week's worth or month's worth or year's worth. And a lot of our clients are actually seeing years worth of time saved based on Sense managing these communications. And then, of course, we have what I would consider some nice visualizations that people aren't always able to get elsewhere. So if I look week to week, and this is for all of you that are doing a contract, if we're looking at this week to week, how many people out on assignment were first-time placements versus second-time placements versus third-time placements? And we can start to see, are we increasing that ratio over time? I went from 15% to 32% of people we've deployed multiple times. That's fantastic. And then we're always kind of bringing in, and I can change my time frame here just a hair to go to last year. And we can even do things like redeployment matrix. So if people come off assignment, how many of them are we immediately replacing, or how many are we able to bring back in the fold at some later point, even if they went elsewhere? And then the last one I'll talk about is people reach through Sense. The real power of Sense is we are an engagement platform. So are you getting the most out of Sense by actually engaging many people? Because there's a lot of avenues that Sense can use to engage people, whether that's redeployment, whether that's employee care, whether that's candidate evaluation, whether that's alumni management. And are we reaching out to 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 people each month or each week to get the most out of Sense? Because essentially we're an unlimited communication platform, so you're not going to charge more than what the volume of communication is. So on that, I will hand it back to Pankaj to wrap up.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much. So, just as a quick sort of wrap up, you're going to see the entire platform here. What we're essentially doing is we think of Sense as a complete life cycle, a complete 360 solution that automates pretty much everything that you see here: sourcing and attracting candidates, scheduling and screening, engaging with them, pre-hire and onboarding, taking care of them while they're on assignment, and then either redeploying them or reactivating them if that person actually leaves you and you bring them back 6 months later or 6 years later. There are various different Sense products that help you do that. And here is the ROI that I think we are very maniacal about. So if you can see, this is what a typical Sense customer would see. They would reduce their job board spend by 25%. They'll typically increase their offer to start by 30%. They'll increase placements by 20%. Oftentimes people would double their redeployment rates. We didn't talk about referrals today, which is another product of ours that you can triple or easily quadruple your referral volume, so on and so forth. But this is exactly the report that you will get from us every quarter, where we will show you what your benchmarks were when we got started and what they look like now. So in the interest of time and making sure we finish on time, here is all of our emails. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. I think John here has a quick poll for everybody who is still on. We answered some questions along the way live, and I made them public so everybody could read them, and hopefully that was helpful. But if there are more questions, please send them out to us anytime. Reach out to myself, Jason, or John, and we'd be happy to help. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to learn a little bit more about Sense.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you joining us today. I'll get the follow-up email out immediately.